I started it.
It didn't come across the, there we go. Now it's coming across the screen. Perfect. Somebody has background noise. So good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm Kimberly Kennison, and I'm going to call the meeting of the Information Technology Strategy and Investment Committee. It is May the 4th, and the time is 10:02. As an introduction, the only introduction item that I have today is to bring to everyone's attention that we have a heavy agenda. I've asked Jim to put actual time slots on the agenda so that we can try to make sure that we cover all of the topics that we need to cover today, because even though it's a heavy lift, I think we can get through it. And some of the topics warrant a lot more time versus others. Josh, do you have anything else to add in the introduction before we get started?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then we will go to agenda item number 3, and I am looking for a motion for acceptance of the minutes of December the 1st, 2020.
Mark Rames, motion to approve.
Thank you, Mark. Can I get a second?
I'll second it, Jody.
Oh,
Thank you, Jody. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I have to abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. No other abstains? Okay, the minutes have been approved. Thank you. First item on the agenda, and Jim, I'm going to look to you to help me with who our guests are for each one of the projects. I did not put that down, so I apologize for that. The first project that we're going to review would be the DAS installation and maintenance of eBuilders software migration of construction project data. And I'm not sure who's with us today to discuss that.
Okay, that would be Dave Barkin. He can take the lead.
Dave, are you with us?
I'm with you. Thank you. Hi. Thank you for having us.
Okay. So if you could just describe the project to the committee and give them a brief overview of what you're looking for today's request.
Sure thing. We are essentially the construction office for the state of Connecticut, with the exception of the work that's done at vertical construction. That is, DOT has their own construction authority, as does University of Connecticut. But we handle both for executive branch and for judicial branch construction projects. We've been using a project management software by the name of goes by PM Web for some time, probably 10 or 12 years before my tenure with the state. I should start by saying with me here today is Tim O'Brien, who has been administering to the PM Web and is critical to that platform, and with whom I've been collaborating on this request as well. So Tim O'Brien is here as well, and I'll be looking for him to help support this presentation as necessary. So for the past 5 years, Tim and I have been hoping to replace PM Web. It's not a user-friendly system. There's been multiple complaints about it over the years, and it's not only a system that's used for project management tracking on an individual project basis and to accumulate data for reporting purposes. It's used internally, but the major part of the input is done by our consultants and our contractors. We need a system that is much more user-friendly than the one that we have. And so we started a search a number of years ago, and we've identified a product called eBuilder, which is used a great deal in the industry. It's particularly strong on the owner side, but is also has a much more friendly user interface than the steady state that we have now with PM Web. So better, more user-friendly platform. Our intention is to allow the adoption by our agencies for when they self-administer projects, so that we can also aggregate that data into, which we're not doing right now. So DAS allows agencies to, and each agency has a different level of construction authority, but they self-administer their own projects, and we would like this same platform to be used, because then we can aggregate data much better collectively, and it is a very user-friendly platform, eBuilder. Improved navigation, result in better user efficiency and user adoption. It's been we've had a lot of struggles with getting PM Web adopted both internally and externally, though, we have been doing that, and Tim's been critical in that. We'll have better management level of aggregation of data, which is, I think, important for us in terms of reporting up through the chain of command, both through DAS and then subsequently to the Office of Policy Management and to the executive branch in general. And importance from a technical standpoint, I can't really speak to this as I'm not an IT specialist in any way, shape, or form, but there's seamless software updates, much less than our current system, which has a tendency to break every time we get an update, meaning that all our reports have to be reintegrated, and it's cumbersome and clunky. And this eBuilder is as we understand it, will be much a smoother operation. Tim, would you like to add anything to that in terms of the overall presentation?
Yes, I mean, we technically don't really have the same kind of software as a service that we're proposing to be able to have. And as David pointed out, being able to know that on the vendor end that they are handling all of their software support and upgrades, as well as a lot of the basic user support that presently we provide, and to know that is taken care of as a part of the product, in addition to being able to have, as eBuilder has the ability to allow them to they don't like to call it customization, but the ability to wrap the way that their software works around our particular policies and procedures, and therefore allow us to be able to take a step back and during the rollout, the agency take a good hard look as to how the processes of managing construction in the software platform should work, all of which are facilitated by being able to move into this new platform.
Any questions?
I have one, Kim.
Yes, John.
So Tim or Dave, when you were, it sounded like the scan of the marketplace took place a couple of years ago. I think it was mentioned. I'm just wondering two things. Has the market changed where there might be something else out there? And the second part is, have you partnered with anyone in DAS Best, meaning from the technology side, in selecting a tool that's going to meet your needs?
So I don't believe there's been any new platforms that have arisen that would meet our needs. eBuilder is becoming more and more adopted by the industry, which is why we like it. It's not an outlier by any means. We worked extensively with Best at the initial stages of this, and we were going through a more traditional procurement methodology with RFP, RFI, RFP process, and then shifted once we determined that eBuilder, which also had a GSA contract, was the sort of penultimate solution for us. We stopped that process, but have been working with Angela Tate at Best initially, and our procurement office as well initially. So it's been a long process to get here.
Thanks.
Kimberly, I have a question as well.
Yes.
Just to add in on that,
Oh.
we have been sort of engaged in sort of discussions around sunset, right? Getting the out of the old product as well, and when that happens. So, making sure that we, understand very clearly it, movement into the new product and can help with that side of the house, but also on the how do we get out of the old one and sunset it in a way that doesn't create elongated security risks for us as well, and upkeep. So, we have been engaged with the team on that. Sorry, Kim.
Thanks, Mark. Dennis, you had a question.
Yeah, I know it's a more or less an off-the-shelf kind of system. Some thoughts on how it's going to integrate with Core in our financials. Is there a provision within this budget for that integration?
There's not.
We have not thought about integrating it with Core. I think it's my understanding that it can be, but that requires a lot of work on the Core side, I believe. Currently, I guess you could kind of say we keep a second set of books on the construction side. A lot of this is because a lot of it is third-party input consultants, so we can't, put a firewall between this and our users. But I'll have to admit that beyond that, my knowledge of a Core integration is a hard stop. So maybe Tim, if you want to, or Mark or somebody can get into that.
We did explore that. It is not in the present proposal, but as I recall, eBuilder has the ability for they have APIs so that if we wanted to commit the resource into building it out, I think we had also asked about the capability of integrating into the Office 365, and as I recall, that as well is something that if we commit the resource to building it out, then I think that's possible, as I recall.
Great.
There's also an ongoing set of discussions around the settlement process and vendor payments and how to bring those in electronically with the Core team. So not only is the eBuilder one of the areas where that might apply, but there's several others that were identified out of the Creates report, and I know Yolita, who's the DAS CFO, is also tracking that down for some of the collections work that we have underway and the invoicing work to be able to more rapidly integrate payments and have them flow with less manual work. But we haven't landed any solutions on that just yet, either for eBuilder or for some of the other areas, Dennis.
Thank you.
Is it possible for us to, I see that you have to sunset a system, but is it possible for us to also explore, at least from the vendor side, maybe not the Core side, what that cost would be for integration? Mark, you know that we've had lengthy discussions about this. And of course, you know how I feel about this. I think all of you have heard my pitch is that I'm all about integration. And if it can be put on the third party, then we put it on the third party so that we make sure it can get done. And it could be another phase to this if it needs to be. But I'm not familiar with what items and what actual data sets would need to be integrated and what kind of cost that would be for us to hire the third party to do that. Tim?
I
Dave?
think that, I mean, that is, I hope I'm not like going too far out, Dave, stop me if I am. But I think that a future phase would kind of be what we would more be thinking about, because that would be another cost center. In addition, a lot of the front and center work that needs to be done has to do with, as I said, with the basic onboarding of the software, as well as a lot of the fairly intensive procedural work that needs to be done with that, internal and external training that that will have to be done with both the software and the procedures once they're rolled out. So it's going to be you know, a not inconsiderable amount of effort to being able to do that, which we anticipate yielding some very good fruit, as well as I think you're alluding, kind of laying the frame, the bedrock for future development and in integration, and you know, that is a lot of. I think what we'd like to be able to look to is to have the capability to have the data be able to integrate seamlessly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. And I think it would be an improvement in efficiency, because right now, you know, the information would be entered into the system, and then in parallel would have to be added into core in order to actually generate.
Right. You have dual entry. Yeah, you have dual entry.
It would be a huge improvement. I guess I think from Tim and my perspective, I thought we were kind of like hands off core. So, you know, if we can do that you know.
And core's not at the table, so it's not fair that but I'm all about integration and efficiencies and making sure that we don't have people entering the data twice, because when you enter data twice, it's not always accurate. And I'm all about seamless. And I think that, you know, that's what the whole Creates report is. I think that's what digital is. And, you know, Josh is championing and Mark is championing that. So I don't think we should close our eyes to that for any of the projects going forward. That's my thoughts. I think, John, you're in agreement of that, right?
Yeah, I think what I might suggest is core isn't at the table today, but they will be as part of their roadmap to move to a cloud-based ERP. They will be back at the table looking for funds, and we as a group should ensure that integration is a critical part of their roadmap. And Mark, I don't know if I see you nodding your head. You might have some ideas on how to do that, but it will not be. It will be very successful if we can not only move our ERP to a cloud-based model, but also build more integration points so we can reduce the number of data silos.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, that you know, where we can smooth the invoicing process and get hands off where it doesn't need to be, that's in everyone's best interest.
You know, and I would add to that, even within core now, a lot of our project management staff are bond funded. So those are manual entries that are done in arrears, you know, a quarter out, and just sort of the financial control of projects would improve greatly if even those payroll costs were recorded in a more real-time basis. That would make everybody's life a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, there is opportunity for data flowing in both directions with our project management software. That would make our lives a lot more efficient.
Beautiful. Okay. Any questions from any of the members? Can I get a motion? What the cost of this project today is $789,594.
Dennis Thibodeau, a motion to approve.
Thank you, Dennis.
Beth by second.
Oh, hello, Beth. Welcome. Thank you.
Hello.
If I may,
Yes.
it may be helpful, and I know we didn't start out with this in our agenda, so my apologies, but I think that all motions today should be contingent upon.
Oh, thank you. I meant to mention that. Thank you, John. Go ahead.
Okay, so all of the projects included today on today's agenda should be contingent upon the budget passing with the bond authorizations as proposed by the governor's budget of $65 million in each year of the biennium. Without that approval, there will be a shortfall. So I think the motion may need to just be amended.
Can we amend it? Yes. I would suggest that we amend the motion to be contingent on the budget passing for the biennial as proposed by the governor. Because this is fiscal 22 project start, right? All of these. Yes, okay.
Yes.
Dennis,
Motion to
Motion.
amend?
thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I didn't hear Jody and Beth. Sorry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark, I did hear you, right? All in, any opposed or abstain? None. Okay, thank you. This project has been approved to move on to the next stages. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. This is very exciting for us. This has been a
You're
long
welcome.
time coming. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Next item on the agenda is Department of Administrative Services purchase and improvement of Civic Gov, and I don't know who is with us today to present that.
That would be Darren Hobbs.
Okay. Darren, are you with us?
I am.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent.
Shall you give us a brief on your request
Nice.
for capital investment funds?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep it brief. Yeah, thank you, Chair and committee members. I'm Darren Hobbs. I'm the Director of Regulatory Compliance in DAS's Real Estate and Construction Services Division under Noel Petra. That division includes the offices of the State Building Inspector and the State Fire Marshal. The primary function of those offices is to ensure the buildings in which people work, live, and play are built and maintained to acceptable standards of health, safety, and welfare. We're responsible for the state codes, which are also enforced by local municipal departments. So it's every building in the state of Connecticut, essentially. But amongst those daily responsibilities, we have the oversight of over 100 state construction projects for compliance with the state building and fire safety codes. And that includes the detailed review of construction documents and thousands of inspections of construction during progress every year. And the fire marshals also have responsibility for the inspection of over 2,000 existing state buildings to check that they're maintained in compliance with the state fire safety codes, including those that we all work in when we have the opportunity to get to the office occasionally. So compliance with those codes is not an optional thing. It's a statutory obligation that we have. It's not something that we can deviate from. We have to make sure those buildings are structurally sound. They're safe in case of fire. They provide the proper access for people with disabilities, and they meet many other safety and welfare standards. Of course, this is no small task. The last full year's data before COVID shows that we performed over 4,000 inspections of those construction projects and existing buildings. We don't know if those numbers will return to pre-COVID levels, but we do know that our staffing level is shrinking, and we're expecting to take a big hit as we run into 2022 and what that brings over the next 12 months. So that's going to require all of our existing staff to do a whole lot more with the time that they have available. Some of the things we've already done to head off those impacts are, for example, going almost entirely paperless in 2018, which we think is saving about $100,000 a year right now in paper costs alone on state construction projects. And in 2019, we adopted video technology for some of our inspections. We're now saving probably on average about 3 hours a day of people hours in time that we previously spent driving around the state of Connecticut to get from project to project. So we've already pushed hard at our efficiencies and have made great strides. But as our staff continues to shrink, we've now got to try and squeeze a little more out of that stone. And the next step is what we're here to talk about today, which is to implement some software where we don't currently have software. We took what was a pencil and paper process in 2016 and have made it pretty much exclusively electronic, but we're still manually processing a lot of what we do through Microsoft Office software and other solutions. Of course, manually processing means repeating steps and the inefficiencies, inaccuracies, and difficulties in tracking and reporting that go along with that. So by implementing a software solution, we hope to eliminate most of those inefficiencies and make ourselves put ourselves in a much better position as far as auditing and reporting of our activities go. The proposed permitting and inspection software is typical of what is used by most municipal building departments and fire departments across the state. If you apply for a permit from your local town to do a bathroom remodel, they typically have a system in place similar to the one that we're trying to purchase here, which enables people to be able to apply online for their permits, receive all their communications automatically from the system, pay their fees in the back system, workflows to be managed, inspection results to be entered and communicated, and all the other things that go along with that typical process. We're hoping that it will almost eliminate all of our data rekeying that we currently do, which brings with it associated errors. We regularly rekey our information as we go through the process because we don't have a smarter way of working at this time. So a lot of the savings that we see will come from this. By cutting down on those repeated steps that we currently have to go through. They number in the hundreds and sometimes thousands, depending what we're doing, especially when we're talking about our inspection activity. An inspector that has to enter an inspection finding has to do that manually right now, communicate that out to the teams manually, and that's multiplied by 4,000 to 4,500 times a year. It has incredible inefficiencies, and this software alone would tackle that, resulting in savings that we think we could recoup the cost of the project within 1 to 2 years just by finding those savings inefficiencies. The software itself is a software service product. It's most of its implementation will be done by the vendor, aside from the customization of workflows, documents, templates, and other things specific to our team's needs. The implementation is expected to take about 12 months. It's expected to cost in the order of $140,000 initially, which would include the professional services for the implementation, the migration of the data from an existing BizNet solution for the fire marshal's oversight of existing buildings, and then the purchase of some tablet computers for the inspection personnel to use in the field with with all the associated trimmings to go with that, the tough case, etc. So that's a quick fly through. I know it's quick, but I know your time is precious, so I appreciate you taking the time. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them the best I can.
Thank you. Darren, any questions from the members? None. You did an awesome job, I guess, if I'm not hearing one single question. Hit all the high points.
Thank you.
I don't have any follow-up. John, you have any follow-up?
No, I'll make a motion to approve contingent upon the budget
Contingent.
passing.
Thank you, John.
Mark
Any
Raymond,
second?
second.
Mark, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I saw that. I'm glad the committee is small enough so I don't have to take a roll call and I can and we have video so I can literally watch you. Thank you. Since we don't have any abstains and opposed. I think I saw everybody respond, but I'll just double check. All right. The project has passed. The motion is approved, and we will then move forward. Darren, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay. On to agenda item number 6. This is going to be the DAS IT optimization and remediation cost. This is phase 1 of this particular project. And I think I know who's going to speak of this. Mark? Yes.
Thank you, Kim, and
You
thank
bet.
you, everyone, for being here today. As you all should be somewhat familiar, the state's on its journey to optimize its IT workforce, and so this has been something we've been talking about for some time, and now we're into more specific kinds of actions. This, as many areas of state government where we've already sort of tightened our belt and with existing staff, many people are fully utilized, and so we've gotten to the point at the change where we need some incremental resources and what we're calling the cost to achieve, and so the concept is to get to a consolidated state, there are some one-time investments to establish some new capabilities while we're working our way out of some of the old capabilities. And that's what the request you have before you today. And so as we looked at some of the initial pieces of effort that we have underway, there are pieces like establishing a statewide service desk tool. Today, many different agencies, over 11, have their own individual tools. We'll establish a new tool for everyone to be able to request work and to provide that support out for the agencies. So for an intervening period of time, while that new tool is being established, we've got dual expenses. And so we expect to invest up front in the new tool and then be able to retire some of these older tools through time. We also know that similarly around the device management and endpoint security, there's several different flavors of that are out there. And in order for us to become more efficient, we know that we have some tools that exist in many ways, but we need to implement them. The tools that we got out of the included in our Microsoft agreement. So taking that investment and implementing it further to allow us to more rapidly change devices, make sure that if something's gone wrong, we can repair them and get it remotely managed, but bringing some new both security and automated deployment management there. There's a substantial part of the request that relates to unsupported applications. So as we did an inventory of what we have out there, and we have many instances of Microsoft Access running on unsupported versions that we now have little or no people to support those, and they are creating unacceptable business risk. And so as we move agencies into the new structure, we know that we need an opportunity to remediate some of those most critical. Now, this is not intended to remediate every application that we have out there in the state, and some of our applications are quite large and have already programs underway. This is intended for us to be flexible and move quickly on something that is perhaps small in nature, but it creates substantial risk for us. And an example, we're doing some work right now with the Office of Higher Education to remediate some of their access databases, and the time that it takes adding it onto our existing workload is that will not scale as we move and consolidate more of agency technology. Two other pieces that are included in here. One is an IT financial management capability, and this is somewhat of a reporting add-on to CORE to be able to demonstrate show back of what our IT is costing us to the agencies that are a part of this. That's in many ways going to be required to benchmark what it is we're spending so we know where we are, but also to recover our federal reimbursements that are possible for our IT resources. And then we do expect, up until this point, we've had some incremental, really 3 people who we've added to the team that are helping us manage this transition, and we'd expect that we're going to need those individuals for another year. And so the total request is $5.85 million, and it's for initiatives that I've just described. So happy to take whatever questions you might have.
Any questions from the members? I see Dennis shaking his head.
I'm encouraged by this. Obviously, we've been talking about optimization for some time, and I think we're on a good path right now. So definitely need to support this. Our agency benefiting quite a bit from it.
Mark, I guess the only comment, it's not even a question, it's just something that we had talked about, was the This notion that, access in particular, has been prevalent across the state. I remember having these conversations 15 years ago about eliminating it. And I can't say we're any better off than we were back then. There might be a tad bit more, but I think it's important that we have supported systems and applications to the extent that OPM's application portfolio can help not only identify where those systems, and I'm using my famous air quotes, those systems are. I think it could be helpful in identifying where they all are, but also helping to prioritize which ones need to be replaced first. Last count, there were 142 self-reported. So it's not an insignificant number of systems out there.
I totally agree with you, and that application inventory has been very helpful for us, and some of the data gathering we did in the early stages of optimization has unveiled other, non-self-reported elements, but similarly to what was discussed earlier, right? The idea of moving things to a low-code, ongoing supported platforms instead of having them be on-premise and not supported in a way that allows us to continue to get patches, updates, sort of forced upgrade streams is what we're trying to get to for all of these sort of ancillary and some they're critical, but systems that are managing parts of the state's business. So we don't want to just move it to something that creates tomorrow's support problem. We're looking to move it to locations that are more supported on an ongoing basis.
I don't have any questions since I spent a lot of time already briefing with Mark, and so I could get an understanding of my financial and, enough IT to be dangerous. So I always take a little extra time for Mark is very patient with me to get me up to speed so I can understand because I always connect the dots from the financial perspective. So thank you, Mark, for your patience and making sure that I can understand what our investment is going to be,
Kim, I just, I don't have a question. I would just like to thank Mark and the rest of the team working on IT optimization for their leadership here. This is, some of this work is, it's hard to overstate how important it is, but it's also kind of some of this obviously is the less glamorous kind of foundational work that's needed,
Sure.
right? Where we haven't turned over some of these stones in a while, and you turn them over and you don't like what you see under there, but
put it back, but you're not, you're grabbing it.
It's embracing the challenge of dealing what's underneath there in a way that's going to really help reduce risk and set the organization up to add, more and more business value for our agencies in the years to come, which is what is so important. And so, I think with the leadership of the governor, Secretary McCaw's really strong support, and Mark and his team's leadership, this is a really exciting time for the IT function in this state, and these investments are an important part of that. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm. If we have no other questions, let's move to a motion with a contingency based on the FY 22-23 biennial budget for IT capitalization. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, John. How about a second, please?
Second?
Who is that? I'm sorry, I did not see
Beth,
that.
bye.
Jody?
Beth.
Beth, thank you, Beth.
Either one of
And
us.
any discussion, further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please.
Aye.
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 Opposed or abstain? All right, the motion passes. We have approved that project. Get ready to go, Mark.
Oh, we're overdue ready.
I know you are. to the non-glamorous. Well, now maybe we can move on to something that might be a little bit more glamorous. Your next project that's up, number 7. So this is the DAS Connecticut the Digital Service One Stop Phase 2 project. Mark, I think you're up again.
In this instance,
or is that Max?
I will ask Max to go ahead and cover this topic. Max Geigel.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks, Kim. For anyone I haven't met, my name is Max Geigel with the Digital Services team. We're underneath Application Services, and Dave, our director, is here today as well. If the committee is all right with it, I'll share a visual presentation as well.
Yes.
Sure. Very good. Thank you. I realize everyone's time is valuable, so we're going to run through this. Please do stop if there's any questions along the way. I definitely want to address any questions folks might have. So I believe we came in front of the committee just over a year ago for Business One Stop. It was a service category within the expanding MyCT enterprise. So today we're going over phase 2 and the request for it. We'll touch upon where we've come, kind of some of the lessons we've learned, as well as where we're going and what we're proposing for phase 2, and as well as what this means for the enterprise that's developing. So phase 1, One Stop is the colloquial term for it. Is currently being rebranded to MyCT to kind of take a look at what this means for the entire system versus individual service categories within it. In short, when our team and the agencies working with us dove into business.ct.gov and developing the project, we were really developing the governor's vision of an all-digital government. How do we get into it? How do we think about the entire system and bringing agencies in to provide a singular experience for the end user that are in reality using services across agencies? We saw this as a modernization project, as well as a project to help agencies provide these services in a more frictionless way, provide for some transactions and a better user experience for that end user. Initially, our idea was to build a dashboard and a new design system attached to business.ct.gov, a tool for entrepreneurs to do their business in one place versus jumping around to different agencies. That user experience would be guided by a chatbot to give a more tailored and personalized experience to anyone that had questions about the system. On the back end, we also built a bit of ID management to understand that user. Think about what does a person need, how are they interacting with services, so when they come back, the system can more intuitively serve those services and content to the person that's utilizing the services in business.ct.gov, as well as a design system that we're currently growing across websites, and some forms and a process to digitize forms that of many agencies are utilizing. We had planned for an MVP, minimum viable product, and 2 iterations of business.ct.gov, and certainly anyone can see the outcome of that on business.ct.gov. But with the funding that we were provided for business.ct.gov's phase 1, we developed and produced that MVP, 2 iterations as well as 3 additional iterations of business.ct.gov. We pivoted due to pandemic. We felt it was necessary to understand business owners' needs in the pandemic and how they should, how they would interact and what services they might need from the state. We also stood up a chat bot, Robin, and I apologize, I do live next to a fire station, so apologies for the sirens. Nevertheless, we built Robin and provided Robin on business.ct.gov for that more personalized experience. Built up a design system, content standards, and a form digitization process, as well as a number of COVID-related products for agencies, as well as for the system that's growing. We also did not intend on providing any specific assistance to agencies that were interested in joining One Stop or the MyCT initiative, other than working across 5 or so agencies to develop business.ct.gov. But we ended up also supporting internally the Secretary of State's Business Registry Service, building that into the system, the DMV and their digital services, Connecticut Paid Leave, and DECD, and some services they were looking to modernize as well. We also, as a team, provided guidance to a number of agencies that are looking to improve their services and start thinking about what the growth of the enterprise might mean for them. And we did see some uptake. So in just 3 months, in just 6 months, 2,500 businesses registered their business with the Secretary of State after using business.ct.gov. A good number of those registered businesses started on business.ct.gov, which was really the intention of the service category. Really, so an end user, an entrepreneur in this instance, can come to one place, understand what they need to do to open their doors, and be guided by those state services in between the agencies that are providing both the content and the services. There was a good amount of uptake within that system, and we feel that entrepreneurs have saved a good number of hours and in reality dollars associated to the time that they would have previously needed to spend to start their business and open their doors. That financial impact we believe to be estimated at just under $1 million across all Connecticut entrepreneurs that use the system. Even beyond that, we've seen over the past year that digital services assisting the Connecticut resident and people that use government services in Connecticut drastically. The analytics are fairly clear that uptake of DMV services and DRS's MyConnect system, consumer protections licenses and DPH's licenses are drastically high and higher when the services are improved through digital modernization. And of course, probably everybody is well familiar that the COVID-19 portal, vaccine portal, had a very high amount of volume through it, much to the efforts of DPH and other folks that worked on that project. Our chatbot has also gotten a good amount of intake, and through the growth process that happens with the chatbot, once users start using it and we start grooming and iterating based on the feedback we're getting of the folks using the chatbot, that at this point, the chatbot is fairly successful and able to guide that entrepreneur or person that would be asking questions of the state, which in reality is what they're doing. Any questions so far?
None here.
Great.
Max, I would just add, in addition to the benefits that you listed to, the external community of business.ct.gov, the team should be aware the advanced CT organization, and DECD, who do, our recruiting of businesses that are contemplating whether they want to move into Connecticut, whether they want to expand in Connecticut. They use that site as a key element in their sales pitch because it shows so well, and it shows that the state of Connecticut has really got a modern, thoughtful approach to how we serve businesses in this state. It's just, I don't know if everyone's aware of that, but it is a key tool in their sales toolkit, in addition to the the kind of tactical benefits that were quantified in the prior chart. So it's another important element of what this team's built.
Awesome note. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
So some lessons learned before and throughout the project. In advance of the project, as well as right when we started and then the pivot through COVID, we learned a number of lessons through research. Now, this is research with agencies and agency stakeholders, quasis and those that work with the state, but also importantly, business owners and those that would use the services that the state provides. We gathered a number of lessons and iterated and built our project plan and project based on the research that we gathered. First and foremost, that the public does expect services to be online and accessible. But unfortunately, the entrepreneur might get lost in the details that the state provides and be confused in between the agencies that are providing guidance that in reality work across services. Those business owners do feel disconnected due to the experience, but they do want the state to meet them where they are so they can grow and expand their business with the state and not tangentially or retroactively with state after state guidance. And so we built the project around it. As we walked through the project, we learned a number of lessons as well that agencies are not always prepared to modernize their digital systems, but there is a huge need to modify and simplify the online presence between government websites and the websites that the agencies provide. Tech, there is a lot of benefit to reuse and share tech between agencies. And most projects, unfortunately, are not grounded in user research, as the government is constrained by a number of items that this committee is well aware of. And so as we walk through the project, we found that these enterprise-wide projects do assist agencies in all of the above. Those cornerstone capabilities can drive reusability, and we found that agencies did need incentives to progress these enterprise-wide projects. Once the MVP was delivered and subsequent iterations caused effect with both the entrepreneur and the agencies showcasing their services through the tool, we found that the public will use new services. The analytics show it, and we have gotten a good amount of feedback through testing and subsequent research that the public is happy with what's being developed, and it's matching their expectations of what the state should provide. That customer behavior does provide a lot of data to the state to understand those customers even more, so we can continue to iterate and improve the system that's being developed for the agencies to provide those services. But we also did find that it's a substantial undertaking to provide those services and work with the agencies in building the system. Nevertheless, we do believe that the investment creates positive outcomes, and we found that it creates positive outcomes for the state as well. Questions on that section?
Less a question, more of a comment, Max. Just to reiterate that last point, the state has tried in many instances, to put transactions online, but without the approach of the team, that's driven by user behavior and for what they want to accomplish versus what we want to get done. We've found that the prior approaches have not generated the uptake that we would have expected, and there's plenty. Our history is littered with some of those examples, but the feedback that we've gotten that we didn't highlight today around the delighted number of people that are using the different digital platforms, and now that we're able to engage with them in this way, the reduction in the call volume, the increase in satisfaction, that singularly contributes to a reduction of work inside the state. But the way that people use things are by creating them for them, right? And not as sort of an ancillary process. So, just wanted to share that that intentional work by the team to create that kind of an experience is largely what makes it successful.
Max, do you happen to know off the top of your head how many identities have been established as part of phase one?
Identities. Do you mean user personas, or do
Yes.
you? Goodness. I do not. I do not know the exact number. It is fairly high, mainly focused within the entrepreneur and Connecticut's business owner community. When we did our COVID research, we also thought a little bit broader about the residents' need in COVID, and some of that content was affected by that research. But I'm sorry, John, I don't know the exact number.
So those, presumably though, those personas that have been established will, I'm probably trying to say this the wrong way, but they will continue to be used for any additional online services as part of phase two and beyond, correct?
That's absolutely right. Even beyond that, as we grow our understanding of the enterprise and research more communities that utilize agency services, the number of user personas will only grow and add context to the personas that we've already researched.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. All right, so One Stop MyCT phase two, this is what we're proposing for next round. So The idea here is that we're looking to build on the successes of business.ct.gov and provide more positive outcomes for both the end user, the resident in Connecticut, as well as the agencies utilizing the platform. A little bit of, I guess, a note on some of the verbiage of One Stop versus MyCT. It's useful to note that business.ct is a service category where multiple agencies plug services into one space for an end user to utilize based on what they're asking of the state. We found some research that an end user thinks about government services not by the agency that provides them, but by the service itself. And so we are looking to rearrange the showcase of services around those service categories. MyCT, in juxtaposition to that, is the enterprise that's built, that top layer that's built on top of it, whether it's the service layer and the user experience or the tools that are built into it that are available to any of the agencies, such as document management or the chatbot, et cetera. So what we're proposing in phase 2 is to expand that enterprise, expand MyCT in the number of capabilities that are built into it, as well as the uptake of the user experience, the design system, and the chatbot across the agencies we'd be working with, as well as build a number of additional service categories, research those communities, and build projects around some well-used services in order to provide that more seamless experience for the communities that would use the entire system. To run down, we'll go through a list here, but nevertheless, we also find that there's a lot of value in providing these opportunities to agencies that would utilize the system too. So the service categories that we're proposing is continuing to build business.ct.gov, provide initial space for health.ct.gov, and we're grateful for some lead funding that came from, I believe, a bond commission earlier, driving.ct.gov, as well as transportation, additionally to that, education and taxes. And again, these are service categories to provide a singular experience for the end user. The roadmap to get there. So where we've come is roughly $10 million for business.ct.gov MVP and the items that have been already noted. We have gone forward and delivered on business.ct.gov, as well as Connecticut Paid Leave, Secretary of State's Office, the DMV, and a number of other things. The system-wide, we're looking to expand the signed-in dashboard, MyCT. This is the experience where an end user can go and sign in and utilize some services at the agencies, as well as building out the capability for the state to understand that user through ID management. Some tools that we provide in the system to agencies would be document management, payment processing, and rapid forms, or an architecture and a team to help agencies improve their forms and build them into this system that's growing, as well as a couple other tools, the chatbot and the service catalog. The service catalog being the channeling factor. If someone goes to ct.gov or goes to an agency website, how would they find exactly what they need in the shortest amount of clicks, and know some subsidiary services that might be applicable to them across agencies or within the same agency. Regarding the service categories themselves, again, business.ct.gov, health.ct.gov, driving, education, and taxes.ct.gov. And this is what we propose in phase 2, which would be this year, next year, and a backlog that extends another year. So some of these opportunities, we really do believe that the dashboard itself will reduce agency costs and the support needed across these services. ID management will certainly decrease time spent on government interactions because the system will understand what that person needs a little bit more. The rapid forms architecture will certainly assist agencies provide forms and hopefully decrease the amount of time needed to support forms across the entire system. Document management has cost savings attached to it and will hopefully help lower call center volumes across agencies utilizing it. Payment processing certainly will help the standardization. We're hoping will help agencies lower costs operationally. The service category will help channel the end user, decreasing the time utilizing the system, and hopefully also decreasing the agency's need and level of effort in supporting their systems. And the Connecticut chatbot will help provide a common guided experience for the end user utilizing support or needing support from state systems that are either unclear or they just need additional assistance utilizing them. Business.ct.gov, which of course is the project that's already been presented. We're looking to deliver on this by building out the service category more, working with additional agencies, and then, John, to your point, probably building out the number of user personas that we're thinking about when building this one service category, which will of course affect the other service categories that would be built as well. And then just as an example, because we have not gotten into the other service categories as of yet, we would start with research first to understand what those end users need. So for education.ct.gov, there would be research presumably to understand what educators, students, education boards across the state, et cetera, stakeholders, as well as the agency might need and value for services across education. And again, this is not just Department of Education in the state, it's also any job training, anything that might fall within an education realm of services across agencies. And there's a smattering here of just quick research that our team did to support this pitch. That reaches the end. There's more in the appendix, and happily to bring that up in case there are additional questions, which I guess at this time I'd love to open it up. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one question. Yes, who was that?
Beth, but you go ahead.
Nope, go ahead, Beth.
I have three questions really. I'll start with a couple broad questions. How are is this work tied in with the American Rescue Plan funds to help people access services through Connecticut One Stop or whatever we're calling it?
I believe so, but I would like to pitch to Mark on this one.
Yeah, I'll take that, Max. Thanks. There are two pockets of funding for American Rescue Plan that relate to this and actually build upon what we're describing here. If you could go back just a couple of slides, Max, to what the investment looks like. One more. And so the service dashboard. The service dashboard, the identity management, the chatbot, the service catalog, and the health.ct.gov were all intended to be leveraged with the additional American Rescue funds. And so there was both a capital and an operating part of the proposed ARP funds use for this that build upon these directions. So they are interrelated and allow us to move much more quickly. The difference is the efforts identified in the rescue plan funds allow us to go more deeply into integration with existing systems or perhaps even replacement thereof for things like Connect, which allow us to get more quickly into the resident benefits and getting them statuses on where they are and replacing that largely a forms-based and document-based capability with something that allows data to flow through the systems more readily. So the ARP funds add on top of this.
Okay, because I know that originally came out of our committee and went over to the Public Health Committee, but I think the goal there was that would supercharge this process, that those dollars could really speed it up. So you're saying that's true.
Yes.
The second piece that I think is important here is the P20 Win group that has been working to get agencies to sign off to share data. And some of that work seems important to make some of this work. Is that accurate or no? You know, because the whole goal is that like a family could sign up for childcare, but also use that information to get health care or housing or SNAP from the same, and that requires some data sharing. So we've been working with P20 Win, and I know we're hoping to get some sign off this month, but there's still some feet draggers. So I'm wondering if that's related and if there's any way that we can help move the feet draggers.
That's a great question, Commissioner. We've actually been working with Scott Gall this entire time to understand where those Venn diagrams overlap. As you've seen through this presentation, data is very important, and understanding the end user. And so the progress that we've made so far is to understand how to gather, data in a small way. I believe Scott's team and the P20 Win program is looking to understand how data can be used in a very large way, how agencies can share data sets. And so I don't know, Dave or Mark, if you'd like to kind of add more context to it, but I do know that we have been working together to understand data and how the state can utilize it.
Yeah, I'm happy to just add in briefly. One of the fundamental concepts of digital government is empowering the individual and allowing them to share their own data. Once it gets into an agency program, it's managed and measured by the rules and the oversight we have around any individual program. So it can be unemployment insurance for labor or tax, IRS rules for taxation. But digital government allows us the opportunity to create, allow citizens and residents to share their data across a variety of different programs, so to speeding up and making it easier for them without having to fully tackle the movement between agencies, because it empowers the resident to share their own data and to say, no, I don't want it shared. So that management of consent, it doesn't fix the problem around agency sharing, but it can speed, by using the individual's permissions, it can speed the process of sharing and make their lives much easier.
Yeah, I understand that. I still think the data sharing is so important for us to know what programs are effective and what's working. And I will tell you, it's a huge challenge to right now. And so we're hoping that some of these ARP dollars can be used to really speed things along. And finally, I'm glad we're on this slide, because I know we've been in the process of trying to create a family-friendly portal with Deloitte it's been already a year in process for parents to sign up for Care for Kids. And we've set aside some federal funds that we have. But I don't see the Care for Kids on the list for 2021, when, as I understand that, it's in process. Is that just because this is for what these funds are for, and other funds may be in the same bucket, but they're getting other funds not from this project?
Yeah, I mean, this is David, and I can speak directly to that. There's obviously funds already appropriated for those specific projects. I think, an important part of this story that's not being told in this slide is sort of those underlying efforts that we've made towards common platforms as a service or identity management as a service, common API catalog. So without getting too technical, there's a substantial amount of work that goes into digital government that's not necessarily the outward facing result of those efforts that can now be shared across all of this work. And so I'm not trying to sidetrack from the conversation, but I do think it's important just to kind of mention that this might look like a big number, but moving forward, it should reduce the requests in future years, right? Because you have a launching point for starting a new, any service category.ct.gov starts from this holistic view of a one-stop. So you are fortunately an early adopter of that vision, and so a lot of the work that we're doing in the parent portal is absolutely important to expanding on health.ct.gov, for example, in the overall collaborative effort. So it's not dismissed here because it's not happening. It's just because of exactly what you said. It's not part of this specific financial.
Right. And just one final sort of observation and comment from like a preschool teacher's interface with state government and technology is that I think that one of my observations is that and I'm hoping the digital team will make all the difference. But, you pay all this money to Deloitte and then you don't have enough staff capacity to move them as fast as the team is ready to move. And then it costs you another $500,000 because the state didn't have the capacity to keep up with it. And then next thing you know, you're a year behind in where you want to be, and in many ways starting over. And so I guess I just wanted to say it looks like between these last couple of votes, we're looking at capacity to really rev things up and a roadmap that's going to help us get to a place where there's more communication among agencies and the actual capacity to move the programs forward in ways that consider the users and consider the data so that we can learn from we can see how our programs are doing cross agency. So I'll stop there, but I think this is an opportunity to say this is exciting, and and it's also a time when people are letting go and hoping things will move forward. So I do think it's important that, like, on lists like this, when you go more broad, that people can see their projects are in the queue, even if not funded by this particular money. I know that was a little scattered, but I think you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, I'll let you speak to this, but I mean, I think that's the beautiful part of optimization. Where we're heading is helping us deepen our skills and services to sort of inherit some of that responsibility for the solutions that we're creating, so that we don't have that deep dependency on the vendor relationships that you just described. And that only happens over time, but it's definitely where we're headed.
Commissioner, by the idea of, we tried to be specific on what we were requesting funds for to not confuse the matter, but telling it and rightly identifying and telling the story around what we're doing across the state around digital, I think is and how those things interact is really important for this overall program. And something that we've talked about recently with the digital team is the need to evangelize this, not just what we're describing here, but what is happening out there and across a variety of different funding sources to that work that the tax department's doing or labor in your agency, right? That those things have a direct bearing, deep, that some of the work that they're doing on that resident experience. And we needed to be doing a much more holistic job if we're sort of addressing here's what the state's really doing around that and not just related to this particular request. The other thing I'll just add, the nature of the bonding is really, in this instance, is that we don't use it for state resources. And so, I do know that part of the rescue plan funds and that there's an operational funds, part of that is to track just what you were saying and make sure that our agencies, the digital team and our agencies have the ability to participate in all of these in a meaningful way. So it's an important part of how we think about finance, right? That it's not just the capital expenditures, but to engage that there's ongoing operating associated with just making some of these, creating the think time for people to participate with this when they're already overwhelmed with their day job.
I think we have Kim got disconnected, so I think she may be on just via phone right now. And I see that someone has their hand.
I'm back, but I am back by my telephone. They're doing work here today, and I don't know if they lost connectivity because of the construction work. That was the banging that you heard earlier. I'm like, I wish I knew this. I would have changed to my location. So I apologize.
I just wanted to say that I think someone has their hand up. It might be Max.
I think it's me, Jody.
Oh, hi, Jody.
Hi. I don't know if Max has his hand up as well, but I definitely have mine up. I don't see Max's hand up. So I just wanted to say, as a mother of two teenagers, I have completely welcomed the optimization as it relates to DMV. And so, getting them prepared to take their license and to get their license and signing up through the portal was really, really, really helpful. And all of this really excites me both as a resident of Connecticut and also as, Deputy Commissioner of DCF. As to Beth's point, we're looking to, really update our infrastructure and our IT related services as well, and really see the need. And I just want to put a plug in to support what Beth is saying around interoperability and really systems talking to one another. And it may not have a place in, this particular process right here that we're dealing with today, but I just wanted to just say we get excited when we see projects like this and want to see it sped up for our respective agencies. So great job and looking forward to the future.
Thank you very much for the kind note. Also, offline, please let us know how we can help with any of the projects you're looking to present.
I think just Jody, to pick up on your comments, I think it's worth noting, right? The way you started that was not, the way you started that comment was not as Deputy Commissioner of one of the largest agencies in the state of Connecticut, right? And a major leadership role that you have. It was as a resident, right? And as a parent and as a consumer of state services, right? And my comment earlier about access or advanced CT and kind of the business recruiting, again, like that, you're going right to the heart of what is one of the things that's so important and exciting about this initiative is turning how we think about technology in the state inside out, right? Thinking about the residents first, the businesses first. What do they need? How do they want access services? We know what our expectations are about how easy it should be to do things online, from shopping online to banking online, right? And it's about getting Connecticut caught up to that standard so that we meet the needs of the people of the state. But when we do it right, and we're seeing this with business.ct.gov, and next we'll see it with a lot of the other services we provide, it also provides tremendous benefits to the operations of state government as well, right? It helps reduce a lot of those manual touch points, duplicate data entry, frees up our people to work on higher value tasks rather than, key whacking paper forms into systems or answering basic questions that a chatbot can handle. And so, these investments, right, really help, fortify and build out that foundation that enables all that value, both for the external citizen of Connecticut, but also for our own teams internally, which is, where this is all headed. So thanks for the comments.
Yeah, that's precisely why I started that way. I can hear from the team that from early on in conversations that you wanted to make this process easy for the residents of Connecticut. And I can honestly tell you, I have a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, and we're going through the driving process, and it was made so easy. So I wanted to give you all that feedback. Kudos.
Thanks, Jake.
I can just ask one question, I guess, Josh, I don't know. So from a vision perspective, I love this from the beginning, that we're focusing on the individuals, the citizens and the businesses and so forth. But oftentimes when we interact with government, it's not just state government. So I'm just wondering, from a vision perspective, how does local government fall into this model, especially with, the fiscal climate of the state being what it is? And we understand that we need to not only lower the cost of state government services, but local government services. And I'm just seeing some huge opportunities here as you build on this, to either partner with the COGS or some other vehicles for delivering some of the services that go beyond just state government. And I think Max sort of touched on it briefly on the education piece of this, but I think it goes well beyond that.
Max, you want to show the 2022 roadmap? No, I'm kidding. It's great, John. you're going where we all want to go, right? Which is, we get a lot of these state services modernized, and you create kind of momentum with projects like this, right? Where success breeds success, and other entities want to get on board and participate. And, I know we've talked many times before, but John or Mark or Max, feel free to jump in here, about we see huge opportunity in the future, to work with other government or nonprofit or private sector entities that could add value in these types of services. A lot of the challenge is how much can we bite off at once, right? Because there's a risk there too. If you do try to bite off too much at once, everything can slow down, or you can risk, derailing the momentum. But Mark or Max, any thoughts?
You're exactly right, Josh. And the residents don't care which service they need to consume, whether it's state government, local government, opening a business, right? You have local regs that you need to adhere to. And so we want to tackle that. But Josh's last point was probably the most poignant. Like, we need to be able to offer solutions at scale before we positioned to offer them to local governments, because of how local governments consume. We've seen some of our conversations with ACIR and CEN that until we have something that we can offer at scale that they can participate in a cost-effective way, it's hard to wrangle all of their needs together, right? Because then all of a sudden it becomes an unfunded mandate for them. So it's a very attractive audience, and for simplifying the general public interactions, 100% agree. We just have to get some of the underlying delivery capabilities in place, and frankly, back to the optimization topic, right? Make the data sharing and the flow and the having some modern systems to be able to move this data. We've got some digging out to do, but there's nothing, that vision of extending this out to our municipal governments so that interaction is more smooth, 100% aligns.
Thank you, Mark. I have a couple of questions if none of the other members do at this very moment. No, okay. Max, it would be helpful if you would please share that PowerPoint presentation so that could go hand in hand with the brief that we've already received, because the picture paints a really good a roadmap of where you're going with all of your projects, because this is not just one, it's multiple within one. One of my questions is, Max or Mark, is there duplicate entries that are going on, and versus should integration be needed with these requests as well? Any?
I'm not following you 100%.
So when a deputy commissioner mentioned about licensing and how easy it was, what comes to mind is money and the dollars for licensing fees. Is there duplicate entry within this existing portal, or versus putting those funds over to CORE? Because I consider CORE to be, the major collection of financial data.
I'd say on the payment portal, right? And one of the things that was supported out of the CREATES report as well, the idea of streamlining that payment processing platform would be absolutely integrated into CORE. It would have to be, but this is also about the many systems that need some uplift in order for them to participate in a common platform. So we don't expect there to be a massive amount of integration, but we would expect to be tying into that from the payment platform.
Okay, that's exactly where I was going with that question. And the next item on the payment platform, because it just says payment platform. In the CREATES report, it was talking about credit cards and that we should streamline and use the use of credit cards because of the cost saving measures. Mm-hmm. Is that included in this? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so well, it's so two elements of that. This is the ability to take modern payments. We've actually have that pieces of that up and running for paid family medical leave. That's beginning to be the initial piece of this. But whether it's credit or debit, or frankly, if someone wants to send us Venmo, that's okay too. There are some contractual lifts to the state's contract that, that we have a very cost-effective contract for the kinds of things we take, but it doesn't give us a lot of capabilities. So there is some work that we would want to do between OPM and the Treasurer's Office and the Comptroller around looking at and refreshing some of the terms in those contracts. This is intended to be more on the technical implementation side.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess I'll just throw one last one out. Got a couple minutes. So it is a large ask, and it's a somewhat short duration. Is it realistic that with those enterprise opportunities combined with the agency ones, that this much can be accomplished in such a short amount of time?
We believe so.
So they will be running in parallel, I'm assuming?
That's
Yeah, and there's some factors that are coming together on this, right? So one is, while we're not completely out of the pandemic, and may not be for some time, right? We've generated through the pandemic and recognized a public demand for online services. So we know that there's this huge now interest in getting to us this way, and we're beginning to get some time from the agencies to move quickly through this. If we look at really having this be the foundation of a personalized government service, all of the pieces of the enterprise need to be there and delivered in an incremental or an iterative way, but to really differentiate, make government smaller and easier to deal with. I think you see some on the dates that some of the agencies' opportunities do extend into, and I think this probably needs to be updated from a fiscal year perspective into 22 and 23, because we expect there to be some, and we won't be able to engage with all of the agencies at the same time. So I know that we had submitted an updated cash flow addendum with this that demonstrated that, yeah, some of these folks are going to come on. We won't be able to engage everyone all at once, but that's really in that agency opportunity bucket.
So if I might just ask one thing out, it sounds like there's a pretty well-developed plan to get the majority of this done in those timelines that are outlined. What would be the primary or secondary risks of not completing that, if there are any?
Do you mean completing delivery or the projects?
Yeah, the projects within the timelines with the cash.
Well, there's a number of dependencies, I believe, between the enterprise and agency opportunities. As Mark had noted, we've also seen a good amount of demand. We found the agencies are moving forward on similar projects in their own fashion, and to some degree, this allows the system to develop, as a single unit versus disparate systems that are required by end users and the agencies anyway. So we do see a risk in not providing those enterprise opportunities in realizing the time savings and the cost savings associated to it.
That's a great point, Max. That when the governor put out the digital vision to be online and not inline, many agencies are going down the path. and coupling that with resident desire to interact online, what we're if we don't deliver fully on this during this period of time, what we end up with is a concern that people are creating, I would say, cementing in the silos that are in place today in a digital way, right? That for how they interact, and us continuing with a next generation of investments of making it less integrated into what it is that we're doing. Like that's some of my concern about, we can't fix it all at once. That's clearly, and there will be some duplicative spend as we have to address emergent priorities. But on the large scale, that would be my concern, John.
So thank you. That's actually very helpful, Mark. So
I would just add one, maybe even more kind of, 50,000 foot risk, which is what this ultimately comes down to, is just how much of the governor's vision are we going to deliver, right? He is, you've all surely heard him comment, right? In government, we have a bad case of the slows. And this team has actually been moving really fast, and I think have set expectations now about how much we can get done, and that's really aligned with his overall strategy, his goals. A key piece of what he wants his kind of first term legacy to be here.
Well, I think the alignment between some of the.
I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
I'll just one last one, and then I'll stop. So the risk that both Max and Mark mentioned, I think with optimization, there's an opportunity to not have those risks affect the digital roadmap, right? Where today those silos are within the agencies themselves. So I think as part of the plan for the optimization, kind of getting a handle on that early can prevent some of those obstacles. Easier said than done, but.
Well,
Mark,
we're saying so. Go ahead, Dennis.
On your comment, we're forced to keep on moving forward, and we've talked to you about this, and you're right, this can't happen fast enough, the one stop, and obviously we're excited about that. We've heard it from our customers. A lot of our development was to streamline our internal process. As Josh said, we're looking now really from the outside, and I have some personal experience owning a small business and logging on to 7 different agencies, different logons for each agency, different feel and touch, the payment platforms, everything was different, and in frustration, you just didn't have the time for it. So taking this approach is it's important. And again, for agencies like ours, my agency, we got to keep on pushing it forward. Again, if this is further down the road, we're ready to jump on board and get involved in that. So, this investment is a good investment. We've heard it from our customers. The single sign-on was very important for them. They wanted really everything, a complete profile, a simplified approach, and that's exactly what this does. So everything I see in that enterprise opportunities investment is absolutely necessary, and as quick as you could get there, we have to support that. So I'll just mention again, from my own experience, it's a wonderful thing what's going on here in state government.
Yeah, I would agree and piggyback off of that. Thank you, Dennis. Josh, I do have one question for you as the leader and, the IT guy that's really driving behind the governor's initiatives. I'm going to look back at my experience in higher education where I had 5 different colleges, and all of these colleges, I'm going to call those our agencies, and each one running as silos. And we would have one, flagship enterprise software that we would all use. So for instance, it would be from your student to enter, your financial aid was in that same system. My financials were in the system. The housing was in the system. Your academic classes, your grades, everything was all fully integrated within the system. Now, within the system, there were areas that where elementary, let's just say, from a financial perspective of a financial system, it was an elementary system, but it was really good as far as grades, faculty, that side of life, financial aid, housing. But the university did not allow us to, regardless that I didn't have this perfect financial system, I wasn't allowed to go buy another system. Okay. I wasn't allowed to put in this, separate system that could give probably my financials in a much clearer, because it was an open data. I was at the mercy of an IT group writing me my reports. I couldn't write my own reports. I couldn't do my own queries. So that was the hindrance of, I was like always waiting because I wasn't the academic side of life. I was the support function. Do you see that in the future, as we start to do this digitalization, that that the state will look at things as a whole and state that, okay, this is going to be, I know Core is our PeopleSoft main product. We just built and approved, the requisition and contracting with eSource as another example, that each one, whatever we would decide is like the subsidiary ledger of the majority of the Core, that we would be able to get your arms around this so that other agencies won't do spin-offs, so that they would try to, and maybe this is the committee, if they ask for funding, that we make sure it's within this vision. I'd like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Kim, I think you're hitting on a really, really important topic, and very aligned with kind of the technology architecture that this digital services team has built out as part of, the business.ct.gov kind of phase one, if you will.
Sure.
Which we haven't talked a lot about the tech stack here or the strategy behind this, but you've got Core CT, which is the ERP, right, tracking the financials for the state. But you've got the customer-facing layer as well, right? Because the average citizen resident, they'll never see Core. We don't want them to. They're not allowed near Core, right?
Right.
But the interactions that they have and the tracking of those interactions and moving something through a workflow in a way that's helpful to me as a consumer. We're standardizing around industry kind of leaders in software as a service to support, like you said, kind of cross-state standards for the tools that we're going to use and how we're going to use them. So you're probably aware we're using Salesforce, which is the market, the global leader in customer relationship management and other things. But we're standardizing around that, and that has a lot of benefits, both in terms of having a standard that's in the cloud, that's modern, that we have a high degree of conviction can be very extensible for a lot of these use cases. But also, when you use modern platforms like that, you get, kind of for free, their report writing, their reporting features, their dashboard features in ways where you don't need to be a coder to be able to write reports for yourself, or you don't need to wait in a queue for some central team to, get data out for you, where you can configure your own reports and dashboards with, relatively small amount of training that's, online for anyone who wants to use it. So, there are a ton of benefits with the strategy that underpins all of this work that we haven't talked a lot about today, but that puts us down the path of exactly what you're talking about, both in terms of operational and financial efficiency for the state, but also, better services for our consumers, our customers, but also for our employees, right? More self-service capabilities for us as employees to be able to do things on our own. And like Beth said earlier, not be as held hostage to a particular vendor or, some central group that, we need to do everything for us. Just because these tools have become so much easier to use without needing to know how to write code or do very complex technical tasks. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It just gives me a little bit of your vision, just to make sure that it wasn't compartmentalized as this is an enormous project that, DAS is taking on. And I am supportive of that vision, and I just hadn't had that opportunity to hear that broader vision. And so that is quite helpful. Thank you.
Great. And the good news about this too is it's not my vision, right? This is really kind of
Well, you're championing
strategy.
it.
Yeah, and you know, the good news about this, right, for us as the state and as taxpayers, is that we're not trying to create something that's never been done before here, right? We're essentially borrowing strategies or copying strategies that have been thoroughly battle tested in the large, complicated organizations, in and outside of other government, private sector, other governments, and so forth. And kind of leveraging what's worked and what hasn't worked in other places so that we can, kind of fast track the Connecticut journey here to, a much more modern and efficient way to run the state.
Mm-hmm. Good. Any last questions?
Now, that said, when we get done doing all this stuff, we will be the best state in the country with regards to how far we've taken this vision. And I know a lot of us, particularly the digital services, your team takes a lot of inspiration from the opportunity that we have, the vision that the governor set out in his first state of the state, that we're all really hungry to deliver on.
Sure. John, before I ask, I know that there was a $5 million that was already put forth in the last bond commission as against this project. However, I just wanted to make sure that the dollars that they're asking for today are still in line, because I think, Mark, that your number went up higher than the 60 that you were originally at, and now you're at like a 66. This didn't include the 5 that you just got. Just get me on the right page.
It's 60, Kim. So it's a net, it's net 55 today for the committee.
It is. Okay.
Yes.
But on Mark's, I apologize, but on Mark's breakdown of all of the projects, or Max's, on the side, it says 66 million there. Am I wrong?
61 million. I see 61 million on the slide in front of us.
Oh, it wasn't a slide. I remember the extra report that I asked them to provide by projects.
Kim, my guess, and this is just a guess, but the higher number you're seeing could include the additional scope for the health.ct.gov, or the Health and Human Services project that's being covered through the ARPA capital that was alluded to earlier. Does that sound right to folks?
Yes, I totally, the request that we have in front of us is 60.7, and it's net, that and 5 million has already been provided. So as John reflected, it would be 55.7 additional beyond the 5 that got previously approved.
And then
so today, are we asking for 55 today, or are we asking for 60?
I think the request for wholeness to be able to
as a whole
account for what was already provided. I think we should say this request is for 60, 5 has already been provided.
And that's how we've been accounting for it, that you've gotten the 5 in the current fiscal year.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. All right. No other questions? All right, I would look for a motion for approval with a contingency based on the governor's budget for the IT capital program. And can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, John. How about a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jody. Any other discussion today?
Maybe just a final comment similar to the last. I'd just like to thank and recognize our small but mighty digital services team here under Mark's leadership, but David and Max and their colleagues. There's a couple other people who aren't here today, but who are instrumental partners in this, and then of course all the agencies that are such important partners here. But this digital services team didn't exist 2 years ago. And the fact that it's been brought together and already accomplished this amount and built this amount of momentum in that shorter period of time is really awesome. And so, just publicly want to acknowledge David, Max, and the team for all the great work. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. We'll pass that along to the rest of the team.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. I have worked with David also on another project, and they were very receptive. And my project was a lot smaller than this one, so I think you're building a good team. Thank you, Josh.
By the way, I should also mention those early meetings when we're getting this digital team going and organized and off the ground. John Vittner was a key participant in all that as well. So I wanted to, I should have included you there, John, as well as one of the kind of founding members of the digital services team here.
Thank you, Josh.
Yes. He's definitely my right-hand man. Okay, no other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstain? Okay, the vote passes and it has been approved. Now you have a lot more work to do, Mr. Raymond and company.
Contingent on the governor's approval.
Yeah, we gotta get the budget done.
Yeah, we got to get the budget. I would agree because the well is dry without it. Thank you all. We've gotten through this heavy agenda today. We're going to give you back 15 minutes. And Jim, you said that we couldn't get this done, but I knew we could. So thanks to everybody staying on topic and task, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.